Thank you for joining me today. What we've been doing is working to increase the level of knowledge with faith leaders around domestic violence. But what I've also noticed within the African American community is that women, predominantly, that's what my experience has been with, have been reluctant to not only reach out to law enforcement, they've been reluctant to reach out to their faith-based leaders and remain in the relationship. So have you ever had any experience where you wanted to reach out or have had any exposure to violence where you did not feel safe in reaching out, whether it was law enforcement or...
I have encountered that violence within my life, period, physical, mental, and emotional. And yes, sometimes you get to the point that you want to reach out, but then you go back to the roots. See, I'm from the old school where you went through things and you didn't say a whole lot of things, you just endured it. But when I got into church, and that was my refuge. That was my safe haven. That was a place where I could worship and praise God. And then when I got the opportunity to move to tell the pastor, it was something sort of like when I got ready to say something, I got kind of dismissed. So I never approached him again about anything of that such of a nature. Even when you get ready to speak it, you have to feel somebody that wants to hear. And honestly, there is not many pastors, not male pastors, that are open to too much of that.
Do you think it's different within the African American community?
I think they've accepted it. I think they have accepted it. I know for myself, you think you can change something, and you really can't change what's taking place. And it was like, my life was like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde sort of thing. You know, when he wasn't drinking, he was the best man you ever want to see. Go to work, take care of home, provide, do everything that you needed him to do. But when he started drinking, it became physical. Then it became emotional, and then it was verbal. And then I went into my safe haven, as I said before, was praying. And began to ask God to remove me from the situation, to remove me, or remove him out of the situation. Whatever happened, let it happen. But you still stay there. You still stay in there.
Mm-hmm. What I have experienced with working with victims is sometimes parents, moms, have encouraged their daughters to stay rather than leave. Do you think that's a part of the tradition?
For me, my mom she didn't say much. She was kind of a passive mother. And for me, I was one that was always in trouble because I was always got a mouth, and I would always stand up for what I believed in. And yes, mothers can sometimes persuade their stake in there, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. And that still comes from the old roots of growing up.
And the way we teach our children.
That's right. And they see what you go through. It also affects them. It affects the whole family. And our daughters see the beating downs and the whoopings. And so they feel, if mom took this, so if she went through it, then I can too. So we're teaching them the wrong values, showing them the wrong way to do things.
Do you think people tend not to call the police because of any reasons around law enforcement and not wanting to have their husbands arrested, or?
Yes, almost definitely. They'll call them, but then as soon as the police get there, they don't want them to take them. That has always been, I've never called him, and I never said don't take him if he did, But no, they don't want him to go. The reason for them not wanting him to go could be 1,000 reasons. He's the provider. And if you lock him up, then therefore there goes my food, there goes my money. I don't have anywhere to go. I can't. So they look at it like that. So I think that's a major part of why they don't want the husband locked up.
If you were given the opportunity to talk to someone who was going through an abusive marriage, what advice would you give them?
Get out. The first hit, get out. the first slap, the first put down, get out, because it only escalates from there. It doesn't get any better. It does not. I was in it for 23 years. It don't get any better. I think that also when we got married, we were both in the world. When I got into church, he was still in the world. And so the alcohol and what made his issues that he had per se before we got married, he didn't get rid of them. And it plays. There's a lot going on in marriages. There's a lot going on in the minds of the men. And we don't know it. It's like a wolf in sheep clothing that you're grabbing hold to, but you don't know what you got until you get it.
Was your spouse or your husband in the church?
I was in the church, but he was not. And that, like I said, when we got together, we were both in the world. My life changed because I desired something more, and I needed something more. And when I got into church, he told me he couldn't marry a reverend. He couldn't marry a priest. He couldn't stay with me because I was that. And then all of a sudden it did a switch. It became angry and abusive. And it just drinking and all that went to there.
Do you think that women stay because of children?
That's a hard one, because sometimes I think they do. They don't want to break the family up.
Do you think it's good to stay?
No way, form, or fashion is it easy. You should back up automatically. Get out. You're doing more harm to the children than you are to yourself. Once again, I just think it's the family. We as women fantasize so long about husbands and wives, and we look at these people on TV, which is not reality. But the reality is we want to stay married. We want to keep our family together. We don't want to break the family up. Grandma and Grandpa stayed together for 50 and 60 years. We don't know what Grandma and Grandpa was doing back there, what Grandma was going through. But we just tend to just want to hold on to it. We don't want to let go.
Have you seen any difference in the city of Oakland within our community around the prevention of domestic violence, or encouraging people to speak out, using our advocacy efforts to decrease violence even within the faith community?
We need to speak out about that. From the pulpit, from wherever we got a chance to speak about it, we need to speak out about it, because it is prevalent all around us. I've seen young teenagers getting on the bus, beating their girlfriends down. I've seen them calling them names, kicking them in the streets while driving the bus, the school bus that I drive. And so therefore, it's getting worse. It's escalating to where it's truly out of hand. And somebody, the faith-based, have to speak out about it.
You have now a position where you can reach out and help. How does that make you feel?
Makes me feel good, because I'm here to help other women. I don't want them to see them go through the same things that I went through, or even just sit in and think it's going to get better, because it never gets better. It only escalates. And so that's why I can tell them, get out while you can get out.
Why do you think young men who are raised by women, but are being raised in households where violence is occurring, do you think that has any impact on them?
They have to have a male role, and it's not one that beats women. That's for sure. They need mentors that take them, show them there's more to life than just sitting there beating on a woman. Get out, get a job, support yourself. Teach them how to be a man. That's what they need. Show them how to be a man. A man doesn't have to beat a woman. You're not a man when you beat up on a woman. You're really not a man. You're less than a man.
I agree. Thank you so much for sharing. We want faith leaders to become more educated around this issue. We want faith leaders to become a voice. We want to reach out to African American men and help them to understand what their role can be in helping to prevent domestic violence. So we want to engage men so that we can come together and help to prevent this issue within our community. So we appreciate, individuals like yourself, faith leaders who are really making the effort, having shared your experience, and you can truly have an impact on anyone who may be experiencing domestic violence, or maybe they're just not really sure if they should leave. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.